Hi, my name is Christina, and this is my older adult presentation. I chose to interview Eileen. Eileen is my husband's godmother and also his um, wife of his cousin. So she's a big part of our family, and it was really an honor and a privilege just to get to sit down with her and hear a little bit more about her life journey up to this point. When I was interviewing her, I was really struck by how much she had accomplished in midlife. And so that's where I put my focus for this presentation on. I chose to focus on Erickson's stage 7 of development, and that stage is generativity versus stagnation. This usually occurs at midlife, and adults by this time have gotten through the identity crisis of adolescence. They have gotten through the stage of isolation versus intimacy of young adults, and typically they're more settled within their career. They may have a partner, a family. It's just a more settled time of life. Their focus is on their family, work, community, and just future generations. They're really looking past themselves and to others, so they're no longer so egocentric. A lot of the other stages of Erickson's development is very egocentric, very much focused on themselves, where at stage 7, their focus is more of an outward focus, looking past themselves to others, whether it's their family, people that they work with, their community as a whole. It's just a time to really look outward. They really have a desire to impact the future in a positive way. They want to leave something behind for the future, something that lasts beyond themselves. So they want to make an impact for the generations to come. During this time of Eileen's life, she was married with 2 children. She had one child who was out of the house and on his own. He was himself establishing a career and a family. And then she had one teenager still at home. She also had been teaching first grade. So some of the challenges and the accomplishments that she experienced at this stage of life was that she had taught first grade for 25 years. During this time, she furthered her education, and she really changed the focus of her career during this stage of her life. With that came a struggle to balance home, work, and her education goals. She had always maintained her educational credits that was needed, but when she decided to further her education, it really was more vigorous than she had previously experienced. And so that kind of took time to adjust and find a balance between all the responsibilities that she had already had and now to add something new to it. The crisis at stage 7 is generativity versus stagnation, according to Erickson. Generativity is the willingness to focus outside of oneself and to care for others and a society as a whole. So it's just really a focus on not just yourself, but everyone else also. Realizing that some of the choices that you make impact others and wanting to do things for the betterment of everyone. Individuals at this time also become more aware of their own mortality, which evokes a desire to leave a legacy. So they may want to volunteer to make improvements within their community or their church. They really want to invest in their children or maybe even grandchildren. They want to invest in work and other employees, maybe mentor. So they want to do something that will live on after they're gone, something that can continue on and build a legacy. The flip side of generativity is stagnation. And stagnation is the focus of oneself, on self at the expense of others. So it's a very egotistic point of view of life where they're just very focused on their own selves, their own wants and desires, with really not much regard to how it affects anyone else, as long as kind of they're getting what they want out of life. That's all that kind of really matters. They have a difficulty contributing to the future in a way that is beneficial to others, mainly because they don't see a future kind of that doesn't involve them. So they can't have that broader thinking. They can't think outside of themselves enough to think about what future will be like without them. So they're not really contributing in a way that's going to have any kind of lasting mark or any impact on anyone else. Erickson really focused on that stagnation could negatively impact the next stage of development, which is integrity versus despair. A person who's stagnant will more than likely reach that last stage and face it with despair because they haven't made any kind of impact. There's no lasting legacy. There's nothing that they can look back on and realize will continue on once they're gone. Generativity versus stagnation. The crisis at that time of life for Eileen was after 25 years of teaching first grade, she felt very stagnant in her career. She'd been doing the same thing kind of day in and day out and really felt the desire to have a change and to switch things up in her life. So she furthered her education and she became a reading specialist. While she was getting her education, she was faced with a lot of age discrimination. She said that, she would have coworkers come up to her and say kind of derogatory things to her about her age and the fact that she was going for this kind of new career at that time. And also just other students in general, things that were said or the way that she was treated because of her age. But she pushed past the negativity and she finished the program. She got to be a reading specialist for a few years before her district had budget cuts and the program was discontinued. They outsourced that kind of work because it was cheaper. So she was kind of left at a crossroads where she could once again return to first grade teaching, or she could explore another option and further her education. So she, at that point in time, she decided to teach English as a second language to students in the district. So she received her certificate in that and got the training that she needed to do that. Family as a form of generativity is, it's noted that individuals who have a family express generativity more naturally and at a more consistent kind of rate. And that was true of Eileen. She is a mother of two, and she had been focused on her children and investing in their future for so many years. Her oldest son had attended the Army, and he went to the police academy and became a state police officer. So this was a great sense of pride for her. She felt that he was contributing to society in a way that was positive, and that, she had supported him in doing that. And so it was really, his accomplishment was also very much her accomplishment. Another form of generativity in Eileen's life was her career. She had taught first grade for 25 years. So oftentimes students coming into school, she would have been, one of the very first teachers they had encountered. And she was able to interact with them in such a way that built a foundation for their education where they saw teachers as friendly and kind and someone to go to. And she really was able to mold and shape kind of that foundational stage for a lot of kids. She also taught as a reading specialist. There are a lot of students who struggled with reading, and that made education in a whole very difficult for them. So her encouraging them and assisting them in their reading helped them to, as they went on through education, to kind of have a better grasp of things. And then also her teaching English as a second language, she got to interact with students from other cultures who were coming into school, into the country in general, in a difficult time. They were teenagers and they were a lot of adjustments. And not only was she teaching them the language, but also just being a sounding board for them and helping them process through some of the major changes that were occurring in their lives at that time. She impacted the life of the students she taught and prepared them for a future. And her career choice really fulfilled the desire and the need to leave a mark.